Hi, I'm BZ Rieger, and it's February 5th, 2021. And I wanted to take a moment from my lunch break to have a conversation about how does one square the the perceived contradictions in the true data points that they may be interfacing with. And I think this is a good general question, but today on February 5th, it's particularly um, apropos question because of some new information that's coming out, different conversations, different data points. And so I just wanted to take a moment um, out of my workday to go ahead and play with that a little. So the first thing I would say, and I don't want to, I may do this in other videos. I don't want to go in detail. You'll either perceive what I'm talking about, or you'll come across it, or you'll do it. But in general, just the whole idea of playing with how do you square your perception, your perceiving that things may be contradicting each other, that may be um, moving in ways that seem black and white, or very gray, or whatever, when you interface with them. And so really each individual being is the only one that's important in this conversation, and how you're interfacing it, and more to the point, how you're squaring within you, within your thought process, within your feeling, within your knowing process, how you're squaring that which you're experiencing, rather than going into details of specific examples of things. And that I may do in another conversation later. So the first way I would say that's really helpful to play with this is to realize that that you have your own way of navigating information, of having conversations, of picking up details and information, certain things that you have a propensity to pay attention to or not pay attention to, certain ways that you find that you learn things or decode information um, in your own unique way. And if you're not already aware of exactly what that feels like, what that looks like for you, then that would be the first one of the first things to be helpful in how do you square different um, perceived you know contradictions between information. Another thing is to notice what you're experiencing, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're sensing, what you're feeling, what you're listening to, what you're reading, what you're interacting with, however it's going to present itself to you. To notice it, don't react to it, but notice it and take it in. It's another experience in this very fast moving, hyper accelerated moments of experiencing lots of information, lots of data, lots of revelations, and all experiences are all data points. They are not good or bad until we perceive them to be as such, and they're us. Those data points are each one of us, our being, our telemetry array, interfacing with that, and then getting an experience from that, having other data that we blend with that. Um, and because of that, because of the way I just described it, since in that moment it's only us interfacing with that data, that experience, right? Then what unfolds there is what in that moment is true for us, that particular being. So you in that moment, or me in my moment there. And so there's, I didn't mean to go there, but there you go. In this particular conversation and the title of it, there's a place that you need to square, right? The perceived um, juxtaposition, the perceived contradiction with that, because we're indoctrinated and we're brought up and we're trained, drilled into us that there is what's true and what's not true. It's one thing or not that thing. And nothing could be further from each individual's truth, because we have our own way that we interact with something that's going on. There are very, very few larger, you could call them cosmic, eternal, divine truths, which have the energy frequency that is universal for all. But why? Here's an example. So when you ask anyone who's done any kind of police work or investigation or involved in any kind of witness taking information stuff, you can have 7 different eyewitnesses and you'll get 8 different accounts, because from their perspective, from their actual geographic perspective, so their line of sight to something is going to be different than someone else's, even if they're kind of close to each other. Their perspective and how they can hear and see and look and take in data, so their perspective, their perception on all different levels of their bodies, just in that example, is going to be different, vastly different from someone else, their recall of something. So that's a more linear data point that you can use as kind of a pictorial representation of what I'm talking about. So to get it back to how does one square it and what are they noticing? And I guess a good way to describe it is, where's your knowing resonant meter? Where is your confidence in what you would describe as your knowings? Where is your comfort level in your ability to feel and sense and know and trust yourself, your own intuition and your own read of things and your own experiences heretofore on a whole host of things? And particularly now, as we're unfolding into the fact that what we thought was so, as far as systems and structures and legality things and the way things work in medicine or government or politics or banking, or the list is endless. And so realize that the data and the amount of it that's coming at you is hyper accelerated for the cracking that needs to happen in each individual. Most of the cracking is within the heart to open that, to actually be able to fully perceive what's going on, and then our place in it, our place in connection to that or those data points, those interactions, those experiences. Because an accurate way to say it is that in those moments, we're the only one there. We are the only form of consciousness that is interacting with that. And so we need to have a clarity for ourselves around where we are in trusting ourselves. So now to get to the broader picture of, again, on February 5th, 2021, and things that have unfolding today. There's a number of things, but some are bigger than others. And how do we square the perceived contradictions? One thing would be to look at the totality of information in one particular area or one particular segment or one particular instance or conversation, however it's relating for you, and see what actually is in that whole energetic envelope. What are the nuances of the information, the flow of it, the energetic of that data? What are noticeable contradictions within that I guess grouping of data, the data set grouping in the energetic envelope? And how do you feel as you interact with that? Are you noticing there's different changes in levels, or your agreement with, or your questioning of, or your resonance to? Does there feel like energetics change in that? Another way to play with it is to look at not only that energetic envelope, but what you've experienced up until that moment, and and how you've interfaced with similar aspects of data. And so that you know it's a memory, it's a knowing, it's a direct experience of knowing for yourself. And so the perception of um, in I'm trying to get the right word, the perception of contradictions, or the perception of inconsistencies, or the perceptions of, huh, expansive here, not so expansive there, in what you were experiencing, what you're interfacing with, and the totality of your personal experiences, your personal interface, your personal coming into contact with other conversations, other data, other information, um, and where are there similarities? Where is there evidence? Isn't really a good way to describe it, but where is your direct personal experience saying, well, I've experienced this and this and this, and then I see, okay, this information is being given, and since I watched it or heard it or was involved in it, right, I have experienced that well. But since I'm I am something that is common, right, and my experience, which you trust, um, is common to both of those things, and I can see that there's, because of my own knowing, there's an inconsistency. So how do you square that? Okay, then, because it's an and thing, big time, and there's such delicious complexity here, and such delicious nuance, and it's beautiful because it tells you, it lets you know from your feeling perspective how important and how huge these moments are. And it's not just some data point, it isn't just some conversation. It isn't just a certain event going on within one country or all countries. It isn't just an isolated or ordinary, in what we thought would be the regular linear thing, event going on. So I want you to just play with that, and um, don't be in reactive mode, be in response mode, and mostly be in response to you. Mostly be paying attention to what you're feeling and sensing, and then play with that. Play with what you're presenting to you, and how that's interacting, and how you then navigate so that things are not a reactive events for you. Things are not done in an intellectual size exercise of interacting or experiencing different information, different data points, right? Different energetic envelopes. But it's you going forward and um, really seeing yourself connecting all of the dots together. Because if you can get past that point of perceived inconsistencies and look at the greater picture, especially in this moment of the cosmically delicious, you know, quantum and multidimensional. And that's another way to read all this data, to read all this information, to read all of these experiences that you're having from a multidimensional level, because they will not make sense to you. There will be glaring perceived inconsistencies and juxtapositions and um, kind of countermanding thoughts or views or opinions or senses in all things if you're just looking at from linear. And the last thing I would say to play with, I mean, there's lots more, but just in a condensed way to play with is that we're playing with things from a broader perspective. All things are connected. All things are connected. So all those data points, all that you're experiencing, are connected. And um, because it is such a pivotal on a universal scale moment, um, and because it's read multidimensionally, right? So this way you could go like this way. You can make your hand movements in different ways to encompass all of that. There are focus points, might be a good way to say it, of people's consciousness aperture, where they're coming from, how open their heart is, how wide their consciousness aperture is on something, and how they're able to look at things and perceive data. And so there may be points within the same conversation, the same data point packet, the same experience that you're having or interfacing with, right? Where um, data points are coming from and focused to, right? So handed to, revealed to, adding to the conversation to different consciousness aperture points within the same energetic envelope. So hopefully that was helpful. And the idea is that the information will come from you. I'm not telling you anything. I'm just saying, hey, these are some things to play with. And because this is a very helpful tool for us, and if we treat things that are unfolding in this particular day as just linear, or as just reacting to the perceived inconsistencies, that we're going to set ourselves up, forget everybody else, going to set each one of our own selves up for some discomfort and turmoil. That if you go through it, that's great, but and that's your choice, but that can be noticed and go, oh, and experienced a totally different way. So, anyways, and they're tools. These are all tools, because more and more and more and more of this is going to present itself, and each one of us has to do the work for ourselves. We've got to be engaged for ourselves. We've got to be encountering, interfacing, exploring, and decoding this for ourselves. We can communicate with others, absolutely. We can join together, absolutely. This is the time to do it. Um, but we're the expert for ourselves. And so, how we navigate this is how we do our own journey, our own ride in this hyper accelerated transference from the old unwinding and unbinding reality to the new vibrational landscape, which is already here, already locked in. And now we're setting forward fully to create from there. Enjoy the ride. I love you.